Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us this afternoon for another episode of Ask the Experts, the Nutrition Edition. My name is Lisbeth Irish, and I'll be your host today. I'm a registered dietitian with the New York State Office for the Aging, and I'm also the program manager for our agency's Older Adult SNAP Ed program. I have Beth McCarthy here today with me, and Beth is a registered dietitian with the Oswego region of NYSOFA's SNAP Ed program for older adults. She's also the registered dietitian who oversees the Senior Nutrition Meal Program in Oswego County. She's a very busy person and an amazing professional. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you.
Before Beth and I talk about our topic, I want to invite our viewers to share their questions about the program in the chat. And we'll get to those questions later in the program. So we have a new workshop for NYSOFA's SNAP Ed program called 10 Tips for Adults, which our NYSOFA SNAP Ed educators are teaching. Beth, can you tell us a little bit about that and how those workshops and SNAP Ed resources can help us achieve a healthy balance in our diet?
Sure. The workshops will be held across the state at various locations. And what the workshops do is they help participants become familiar with the USDA MyPlate, which we'll talk about in more detail in a minute. So overall, the participants will learn the health benefits of eating a healthy diet. And at the workshops, we teach strategies to help people choose foods and beverages that have healthier fats, less sodium, less added sugar. And the key word being strategies, not just what to do, but how to do it. And they're workshops, so they're very interactive. It's not just myself or the other nutrition educators talking. We include activities, recipe demonstrations, and tasting, and the participants will share their own ideas and suggestions. And overall, we try to make them fun and very worthwhile for the participants.
That sounds like a lot of fun, actually. You convinced me that I should come and visit you sometime soon. We're going to get into some more details in a few minutes. Our viewers are going to have the chance to ask us questions a little later in the program, but be sure to put questions in the chat anytime during the program. We're going to take a short break to watch a great little video.
Life's tight. Eat right. MyPlate is a nutrition guide developed by the USDA to help you find your healthy eating style and maintain it for a lifetime. A healthy eating routine is important at every stage of life, from childhood to adulthood, and can have positive effects that add up over time. Eat a rainbow of colors by making half your plate fruits and vegetables. This includes fresh, canned, or frozen. Vary your protein routine. Make half your grains whole grains. Move to low-fat or fat-free milk. Choose foods and beverages with less added sugars, saturated fat, and sodium. Find your healthy eating style and maintain it for a lifetime. Visit snapedny.org for more information, tips, and recipes. Save time, save money, eat healthy.
And we're back. Be sure to put your questions in the chat now. Don't forget. And let's get into some details about today's topics. Beth, can you give us a little preview of the 10 Tips for Adults workshops, or, the topics?
Sure. So the 10 tips is ultimately based, as I said earlier, on the MyPlate. Mm-hmm. And the plate, or the MyPlate, the key word being my, it's like a visual reminder of what you try to do with your nutrition over the course of the day. It's based on the dietary guidelines by the USDA and the Health and Human Services. And it's just kind of, they say, the tip of the iceberg. The information that's available on their websites and on their apps allows people to individualize and take the information and put it into daily use. Kind of an overview. And, the workshops take each piece of the plate, and we'll kind of run through that as I talk today, and put each piece of it into action. And as I said, into strategies, that it's not just, well, this is what to do, but it's the how to do it and what really works on a daily basis for everyone. And it's not just a cookie cutter, here's a piece of paper, this is what you need to do kind of workshop. So the MyPlate replaces what might be familiar to people, the food guide pyramid. Yes. And that we've realized as dietitians that really wasn't a great tool to use and to teach people with. And not to say that MyPlate is perfect by any means. People, will look at it and say, well, how does this work for me? And MyPlate doesn't look like that. So how could I possibly use this tool? So just to provide a little background, the plate was developed because the USDA realized that though they've put a lot of information about how to eat healthier so that you are healthier out there, the diet of Americans isn't really all that healthy. It is actually probably getting worse. So just to run through a few somewhat surprising statistics, even to a dietitian, they were a little surprising when I looked at them about how Americans eat. So the first one we want to look at is how many Americans have dietary patterns low in recommendations for vegetables, fruits, and dairy. So this is, based on just averages for people. And surprisingly, the answer is 80% of us, all of us, don't eat the recommended amounts of vegetables, fruits, and dairy, which that's kind of astounding when you think about it, when all the literature that's out there about why we should do it and that it's really not being done. So the next question that we look at is how many Americans exceed the recommended limit for added sugars? And the limit should be about 50 grams a day, which is about 10% of your daily calories. And once again, it's 63% of Americans exceed their limit, recommended limit for added sugars, which is just kind of amazing when you think about it. What's out there to tell people, to switch away from sugary drinks and why that people are still out there consuming that much sugar. So and the next area to look at is saturated fat and how many Americans exceed the recommended limit for that. And if you're going to see kind of a trend here, this one is 77%. With heart disease being one of the leading causes of death, it's amazing that that number is still quite as high as it is. And
I have a question.
The next one to look at, which is really kind of all encompassing, is how many Americans exceed the recommended chronic disease risk reduction limit, which is a mouthful, but really means are you consuming more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day? And that is 90%. A high salt intake is really, really the most common, shall I say, dietary indiscretion of most of us. And it's, related to primarily because so many people eat out frequently, and so many foods that we get when we eat out are very, very, very high in sodium. So to kind of bring it back to full circle, you want to eat healthy to stay healthy. And the next question is how many American adults are living with one or more diet-related chronic disease? And this one really is what, it's great, eat healthy, but the reason to eat healthy, the motivation should be to prevent, chronic disease or to keep yourself healthy. And that number is very astonishing. 6 out of 10 Americans are living with a chronic disease that's related to diet. And now the diet could make an impact on this disease. And these are diseases such as heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and even some types of cancer can be improved, prevented, or reduced with a healthier diet. So the MyPlate is an attempt to get people to eat healthier so they can be healthier, not just to, oh, you should eat this. Well, why should I eat this? How many times you tell somebody you don't just want to know what to do, but why am I doing this? So there is a reason. So that kind of brings us back to the workshops. So the workshops of, the 10 tips is to find your healthy eating style, not my healthy eating style or Lisbeth's healthy eating style. Diet and what you eat is very, very personal thing. I like that the USDA put the word style in there, because you think of style, you think of no two people have the same style in how they dress. And it's kind of if you think of diet as that, it's personal, it's individual. And especially when we work with older adults, I always tell them, you've been eating for many years and you're not going to, I'm not going to give you a piece of paper to tell you what to eat, but teach you hopefully how to eat, strategies, and then you pick and choose what works best for you. You develop your own style. And that's what the workshops do. It's not we'll talk to a lot of times older adults. When I was a dietitian and worked in hospitals, and, we'd say, oh, here's your piece of paper, go home and follow this diet. Instead, we're teaching people the why, the how, the what, and then they take it and they make their own decisions, and they develop based on their own style and their own preferences, what they like and what they don't like. Mm-hmm. So the workshops, that's really the thing, is they're interactive and they're back and forth. They're not just, here you go, do this. So the workshops are based on the USDA, what we call 10 tips. And it kind of gives a roadmap through the plate, so that it breaks it out, and each of the workshops digs in a lot deeper than we're going today in terms of, what that piece of the plate or what that tip means in when I go to the grocery store, or when I cook, or what I, decide to eat if I go out to eat. So it really digs in a lot deeper. And the workshops, just to mention, are about an hour in length, but like I say, most of that it's interactive, it's back and forth, and includes the recipe demonstration, some tasting, and many times participants will bring ideas to the table that, hey, this is what I do, and they share and they learn from each other as much as they learn from the nutrition educators. So to kind of go through what we're going to do is now is just kind of walk through. We kind of did the first tip, find your healthy eating style. We're going to walk through the 10 tips of what the workshops follow, and all based on the plate. So the make half your plate fruits and vegetables. What that essentially means is, if you look at your plate as a plate for the whole day, nobody has fruits and vegetables on their plate every time they eat. If they do, they should win an award, but nobody does. So if you look at your plate as, you have one big plate for the day, if anybody does this, it's very impressive. If half of what you consume is fruits and vegetables, you will be an extremely healthy person, because what you're taking in is, the nutrients, the minerals, that you're not going to be taking in added sugars, saturated fat. Fruits and vegetables provide so much great nutrition to us. And we've kind of America's kind of moved away from, because of just, we're always moving around, fruits and vegetables. And then not to mention that fruits and vegetables sometimes can be expensive, depending on where you live, your access to them, or, getting them fresh. So we talk about in the workshops, different alternatives, using frozen, using canned, and then the best choices within those. And then talk about fun ways to make half your plate fruits and vegetables, because it's got to taste good, right? It can't be, if it doesn't taste good, nobody's going to want to eat it. So I don't anyway. So that's what half of your plate means. It's not that every day you're going to have that on your plate. Or every meal you're going to have that on your plate. So then the next tip, the focus on fruits, what we'll primarily do is look at all the different ways to move fruit or more fruit into what you eat. Sometimes people think of fruit, right? And they say, okay, I got to add an apple at my lunch, or as opposed to, incorporating it into each meal, whether it's adding fruit into your oatmeal or adding fruit into muffins that you're eating, or putting fruit toppings on things. So just different ways to add fruit to what you're doing, and not just, thinking it as, oh, I got to eat a fruit with this meal. So mixing it into our meals. Many people will think also too, as I mentioned, that fresh fruit is okay. Got to eat fresh fruit. Got to eat fresh fruit. And when we go out, we work with older adults. They're maybe not going to be as mobile or running to the store every day, or even any more than once a week sometimes. So we talk about utilizing canned fruits, how to best store the fruits, so that it becomes cost effective for them to go and add more fruit to what it is they're eating. And then, like I said, we try different things that have fruit in them. Because sometimes at any age, you want to try new things and different tastes, and you say, this is maybe something that I would like to add into my daily intake. So, so then the next tip is to add more vegetables to your day. And it's kind of right along the same theme of the fruit, in that, people think of a vegetable as, okay, it's a side dish and it's basically at my dinner, versus, adding spinach or peppers or different things to your eggs in the morning, or to, maybe more vegetables in a soup, adding, beefing up a vegetable soup with more vegetables that you might have left over from the night before is one thing. And just trying to really incorporate more vegetables into what you eat, not just this little side dish that we have traditionally thought of it. And it doesn't mean that you just, some people say, I don't like salad. Well, you don't have to eat salad. There's other options out there. So there's just different things that we'll walk through and suggest to people in the workshops with different vegetables, and try different vegetable dishes and different vegetables that, may be frozen. We've had some people where frozen vegetables to them were, they never tasted good. So we taste tested some frozen vegetables in the workshops, so that they got to see that, okay, this is a nice option for me. And as a person that maybe can't get to the store, the ability to use some frozen foods, is okay. People, once again, with vegetables, maybe have the perception that, it's got to be fresh to get the nutrition out of it. So we do different things like that in the workshops. And then we also too talk about, when you're prepping vegetables, if, a lot of people want quick, easy meals, and they sometimes view vegetable as, I got to peel it, I got to cut it, I got to do this to it, especially if it's an older person that maybe they're not quite as able to use their hands as well and to take all those steps. So we talk about some quick, easy ways to make things for them. So moving on to the next tip of the 10 tips is to make half your grains whole grains. And of all the tips, this is probably the one that people like to hear when we say, everybody says, you got to have whole grain this and whole grain that. And they'll say, well, I just don't like whole grain. I like white pasta, or I like, a potato. And they'll say, I don't have to eat everything whole grain. It says half of your grains whole grain is what the evidence is showing will improve the amount of fiber that you're eating, the amount of vitamins that you're getting. So it's not just, okay, I got to start eating whole wheat everything. Because I hear a lot of stories where people say, I tried whole wheat this and I didn't like it. Well, that's okay. If you didn't like it, you're not going to eat it. So let's find something else that, you can have, whole wheat bread at breakfast, and oatmeal, and then, whole grain bread again at lunch. But then at dinner, if you want to have white pasta or something that's not whole grain, it's make half of your grains, whole grains. Not every single grain you consume has to be a whole grain.
Right.
So sometimes people, I think, feel that with nutrition, it's all or nothing.
Right.
And then that kind of can be a turnoff to people where they want to, they just get sick of it, or they get tired of, oh, I don't want to eat healthy all the time. And that's not what the plate teaches. The plate teaches, learn what's in the food, learn what your plate's going to look like so that you can, you can make it work for you, and you can make it work long-term. So let's look at the other tips. So we have move to low fat or fat-free yogurt. And, we give people examples of that and what to do, and, just ways to incorporate that into what they're eating. And then we have vary your protein routine. And essentially what that is.
Next slide.
Yep. Some people get caught in a rut, and they eat the same. They eat, a ton of beef or a ton of chicken. It's just kind of encouraging people to eat different protein or protein alternatives throughout the day. And to, we teach about how to use different methods to keep those protein items as healthy as they can be. And then the next tip, which kind of goes through the whole, throughout the workshops, is to drink and eat beverages and food with less sodium, saturated fat, and added sugars. And these are the three things we call them. I refer to them in the workshops as the 3 S's. Those are the 3 things that can really impact your health the most if you allow them to stay very, very high in your diet. And we work through how to look at labels and how to, make small changes to reduce these items.
I have a question, Beth. Can you just give us an idea of what a saturated fat is? I think that gets confusing for people.
So a saturated fat is usually an animal-based fat that is going to be, so you have, butter, a higher fat meat is going to have more saturated fat in it. And a lot of times when cookies and baked goods are made, there's going to be higher saturated fat in them. So switching from a lower, like a whole milk, when you reduce down to a 2% or a skim, you're knocking out fat, but you're knocking out a lot of saturated fat. So it's just a matter of adjusting what you're doing. And then also, like, say, how you cook stuff. Frying is obviously going to add some saturated fat. So it's just a matter of making adjustments in some of the choices to reduce the saturated fat.
Okay, that's good. I always think of some of it, not in milk, but in other things, it's kind of solid at room temperature.
Yes. Yeah.
It's that stuff that isn't liquid when it's at
Right.
room
Right.
temperature.
So then looking at the 9th tip is to drink water instead of sugary drinks. And in the workshops, many people will say to us, well, I don't like water, or I don't like my water. So we talk about all our alternatives too, just in case water isn't your favorite drink. And kind of the big thing is everything you eat and drink matters. And sometimes people get discouraged because, once again, back to that all or nothing, they think that they need to change everything. And it's what we really do in the workshop is work through strategies to meet people where they are and to have them make small changes and make sure that they understand that every little change will make a difference. And try to go after the changes that make for them the biggest difference in their health, and not just, just a trivial thing. So really kind of emphasizing that.
Yeah, and these workshops that you're talking about, you do them in your region, but they're also taking place in other parts of the state too, right?
Yes, they're rolling out throughout the state, and they're different places that you can find them. The best is to contact your local Office for the Aging. You might find them there, or you can call the New York Connects, which will provide that number. later in the show. So you can call the 800 number to find out where they are near you. And they're
there it is. It's right on the screen
go.
now. Yeah,
So
New York Connects is great. They'll connect you to your local office for the aging, and they can direct you from there.
So
yeah. Well, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, you gave us so much good information.
As I always say, probably too much information.
I don't think so. Speaking as a professional, I think you really summarized the different sessions that are in the workshops really well. And I think one of the most important things is what you mentioned throughout your discussion was the strategies, and that everybody's different, and we all have our own style. No two people are the same. And that's, the educators are used to working with that. That's the goal, is to help everybody find their own individual style.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back to answer questions. Make sure you get those in the chat, everyone.
What's Cooking with NYSOFA? A new cooking show from the New York State Office for the Aging and SNAP-Ed New York. Each month, registered dietitian Wendy Beckman demonstrates exciting recipes that are quick and easy to prepare and won't break the bank. New episodes premiere on the last Friday of every month at 12:30 p.m. Save time, save money, and eat healthy. What's Cooking with NYSOFA? Streaming on NYSOFA's Facebook and YouTube channels.
Well, let me tell you, you definitely want to go after those demos that Wendy does. She does all SNAP-Ed recipes. Mm-hmm. And as the little video showed you, they help with your budget as well. Actually, she's going to be doing a new one on Friday, the 27th of October at 12:30. So you'll want to tune in then to see what she's making. Actually, I'll give you a hint. I think it's called Sweet Potato Apple Bake, which is right up my alley. I love both of those. And it's really seasonal. Yeah, I can't wait for that. She always does a beautiful job on what she makes. So now we're going to go to the questions. So we have a few here. Beth, I'm going to let you field these. Do you have to eat fruits and vegetables at each meal? I think you did a good job explaining that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like I say, just kind of going back to it, when I teach the MyPlate, I get this, people say, do I have to eat parts of the plate at every meal? Well, no, nobody does that. Because there's also these things called snacks that are only going to have one.
I get mine in. Yeah,
going to have one component of the plate possibly on them. So you want to look at it as, and luckily a lot of times the workshops, the tables are round where we teach the workshops in different community rooms and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And I say, if you put everything you ate on this table today, and how much of this table would be fruits and vegetables? And that's really how you got to kind of look at it. Right. Because nobody eats fruits and vegetables every meal. And, and you might even slide through a whole day where you ate no fruits and vegetables. So you try to, you just kind of get you focused on it more than anything. And and that's what the thing is, the workshops are reality based. No one eats that every day. So you have to just say, so how can I add them in more routinely as I said. So
sometimes when I'm slacking, or I think I'm slacking, I write down what I eat for a couple of days, not, just to see what I really am eating. And that way I can start to make changes. I mean, I don't go from not so great to perfect. Actually, I'm never perfect, but you can start to work on it.
Right. Yeah. You got to take a pause, take a time out once in a while, and take a look at what you're doing on a daily basis. So,
yeah. And I do love them for snacks. I mean, my favorite way to get extra fruit in is we'll use any fruit in a pretty dessert bowl, and then I'll squirt a little bit of that whipped cream on top. Good. Not a lot,
Right.
Squirt, just to make it a little more interesting.
Absolutely.
And that's mostly air. So, you're not getting much saturated fat in the cream. So, or I eat raw vegetables with a little bit of hummus, like red peppers. I mean, these are people like fruit and vegetables for snacks, but those, I love those.
Right. There's, And that's the thing is none of the MyPlate doesn't say you can't eat added sugar, you can't eat saturated fats, and you can't eat sodium. It just is, just kind of get you try to reduce them a little bit. So
yeah, I think we have a question about that coming up.
Okay.
Yep,
there we go. Yeah. Where does ice cream and apple pie fit onto my plate? Well, first of all, it definitely fits onto the plate. And you look at ice cream, it's going to be I look at it's going to be in your dairy group, right? Made from milk. An apple pie, you're using some fruit and some grain to make that. But because they contain saturated fat and added sugar, it's something that's on the plate more on an occasional basis versus an everyday.
Right.
So it's a matter of, and that's where we individualize and say, you got to kind of weigh how often you can fit that onto your plate, keeping that in mind. But certainly everything fits. It's just a matter of the more you learn about it. And people are astounded when we dig into food, and that's what we'll do. We dig into foods deeper and say, well, how much? And they're amazed. And especially we'll compare an apple to an apple pie and how much more, you're getting with that. And like I say, it's not to say you can't have it. You can. We encourage you. You got to have that stuff if it's something you like and it's a favorite. But how to work it in so that it's reasonable, shall we say?
Yeah, one of the things I do is I cut up an apple and put cinnamon on it and stick it in the microwave, and that's kind of like pretend apple pie. Stuff in it. Even if I put a tiny bit of sugar on it, it's still, it fits. It's an extra serving of fruit in a different way that's still, it's reasonable.
Right. Well, your mention of just putting a little bit of sugar on it, we'll do that in the class where we show them how much, okay, this is a teaspoon and this is how many grams it is. So if you look at a label of a store-bought item that has apples in it, and you can sprinkle a whole teaspoon on there and you're still not going to be anywhere near what this product has in it.
Yeah, that's a whole different
so
story.
It's good. To see it is to believe it, and to actually have a demonstration in front of you when you see what's on stuff and how much is in it is eye-opening to people.
Yeah, that same apple might have like 10 teaspoons of sugar, in the apple pie part of it.
Right, exactly. So
instead of the one that I put on my apple.
Exactly. So
pat myself on the back.
So we have another question here. Is it necessary to eat from all 5 food groups every day? So the 5 food groups, they're in the group because each group provides you with different nutrients that we need to stay healthy. So yes, we do direct people to try to eat from all 5 food groups every day. And then that's where it gets individualized, where people will say, well, I don't eat dairy, so what do I need to do? Or I don't eat this, so what do I need to do? Or I'm a vegetarian. So those are individual things, but you got to be aware that there's a reason that we have people eat from all those groups every single day. There's value to all those groups that are unique. So.
Yeah, and dietitians and our nutrition educators are good at helping people navigate those differences,
Exactly.
And then you also offer nutrition counseling, don't you, through the senior meal program?
Yes, through the Office for the Aging. We provide individual counseling so that if they have concerns, specifically about what they need to be eating with a different disease condition that they're dealing with, we provide individual counseling. So those of you just would contact your local Office for the Aging to get connected to that.
Yeah. So your local Office for the Aging has a lot of nutrition stuff.
It's an excellent clearinghouse with any concern for our older adults. It's amazing. I've learned a lot in the years that I've been there, what they have to offer and what they can help people with.
I know they are. It is really fantastic. And then the congregate meals that are available, at different places throughout the state. Actually, they're throughout the country. And also the home delivered meal program. You oversee that too, right?
Yes. Yep. Fantastic programs that help keep our older adults in their homes. And that's really the key. That's where you want to be. Yeah.
My father is now getting home delivered meals through the program. He lives in Ohio, so it's all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
But it really has made a big difference.
It's excellent.
Oh,
We'll
we
take
got another one.
time for
What
one
does-
question.
Yeah.
What does soup count as? So soup is just going to, be a breakdown of, because it's a mixed item. So you might have vegetables in that soup. You might have protein if there's chicken or beef in the soup, and then grain depending on if it's noodles, it's rice. So it's a mixed soup, and it's a mixed food. And the thing with soup is that, we'll talk about, say, in the workshop, you have homemade soup and store-bought soup. And, so we use the label to look at, okay, how can we make this, or choose a soup that's going to not be super high in sodium. Or if you're making a homemade soup, how can you keep it, as healthy as possible without ruining the taste? I always tell people it's a deal breaker. If you alter a recipe to the point where it just doesn't taste good, you've essentially ruined it. So you got to be cautious, when we make changes to recipes. You want to step it one thing at a time. If you change it too much, it's not going to taste good, and then you're going to waste. I say waste your time. You're going to waste your time and waste your money. It's the opposite of the SNAP-Ed motto. So
exactly. Yep. Wow. Oh, we have another question. Is it really worth switching from whole to 2% milk?
So this question, I get this question a lot from people. And making the change, as we talked about earlier, is going to reduce the amount of saturated fat you consume. And this is very, when you go to the workshop and you learn how to look at the label and what it is you're looking for that you want to reduce, you can do this with any change. You want to think about, well, how often do I have some people will say, well, I drink milk every day, twice a day. Well, then it might definitely be worth making the switch, because you're consuming so much of the item that if you make the change, you're going to save a tremendous amount of saturated fat.
Right.
But if you drink milk once a week, then drink whichever you like, because it's such a small amount that you're consuming when you do it so infrequently. But we give people the tools that they wouldn't even have to ask the question. They can just answer it on their own because they've learned how to make comparisons. And that's really the key. Is if you learn about the food, which sometimes, that's kind of daunting to people when you look at, but we can try to give people the tools to look at food, look at what they're eating, and determine their own changes. Not what a dietitian necessarily tells you to change, but they're able to weigh and compare various foods and decide, and for their various situation, whether they're dealing with a disease or they're, trying to impact a certain part of their health. So they can make changes that work for them, not for me, but for them.
You're really empowering people to take control of their own eating habits, to develop a style that, benefits them and helps prevent diseases. Yeah. Well, we're going to wrap it up today, and we appreciate those questions from our viewers. And I want to thank Beth for her time and her expertise. She always has great information to share, and this has been amazing. The amount of nutrition information that she's helped us with is amazing in this period of time.
Thank you for having me. And like I say, I encourage people to look for these workshops and to attend them. And I think they'll find it very worthwhile. And I always say it's 1 hour roughly. They when you're out there and you see them. And I say, if you can get healthier and prevent one visit to a doctor, think of how much time that takes up in your life and what a hassle that is. So if you get healthier and get to the doctor less because you're healthier, you've spent that hour well.
Well, that apple a day saying didn't come from nowhere.
That's right. That's right.
Even way back.
Great.
Well, we know that the healthy choice isn't always the easiest choice, but small changes really do make a difference. And we want to help you save time, save money, and eat healthy. So please, look for us and use that New York Connects phone number to find the different workshops in your area. Also, make sure you check out snapednewyork.org. That's where there's a whole lot of SNAP-Ed recipes that are designed to save you money and save you time and help you eat healthy. And it has some great tips on that website as well. This episode of Ask the Experts was funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and they are an equal opportunity employer. So see you next time.